Hi babes, welcome to Hamilton's Halogen, and this is your friend, Carrie Hamilton. This is a place where darkness meets illumination and truth becomes your turning point. Just like a halogen light burns brighter and hotter to reveal darkness, this podcast is about bringing light into places that many avoid. If you've ever felt lost in the dark, this space is for you. It's time to stop surviving and start shining. Hey loves, Carrie Hamilton here, National Certified Coach for PTSD, Trauma, and Abuse, also newly certified in psychoneuroimmunology. So that I will be talking a lot about going forward. And basically it's the study of how the mind and the body work together. And it's basically a well-oiled machine per se. For those who are not new here, I have constantly gone on and on and on about how the mind and the brain computes and basically is the steering wheel to our entire body. So therefore, I want to make sure that I emphasize throughout sharing my journey and my education and so forth, that how important it really is to understand that everything ties together. So when one thing is basically knocked out of whack, it's everything that becomes knocked out of whack. And it's okay to have stress. I mean, life is going to have stress, but it's the chronic stress that causes the brain to function differently as well as the body. That is the concerning part. So sharing this information with you today, I want to make sure that my whole emphasis on sharing it is for you to heal and elevate, but also to understand how everything truly falls together and why I emphasize so much on the brain and, understanding it and what you're going through. Today, I want to talk about psychache. What psychache is basically a very intense psychological pain that you encounter, obviously hand in hand with trauma. But one specific trauma that comes to mind and that I have learned throughout my studies is suicide. And that's what I want to talk about today. Now, before I proceed, I just want to give the opportunity for those who are triggered by this subject to kindly remove themselves or take caution, because some of the things that I'm going to talk about may trigger or hit a very sentimental part of you, because I am a suicide attempt survivor and I am a person who has lost a loved one to suicide. So this subject for me, even in my studies, was a bit sensitive. So I just want to make sure that I emphasize that to whomever's out there listening before I proceed. So you will see me looking down a lot because I have some statistics here and information that I want to share with you. And so I obviously want to make sure that I relay the right information. So suicide is globally over 720,000 people are dead by suicide. And that's roughly 1 in every 100 deaths globally. For every death, there are 20 plus suicide attempts. It is the third leading cause of death amongst people that are 15 to 29 years of age. It is the leading cause of death in men. Currently in 2026, tracking statistics show that it suggests approximately 95,000 people have already died from suicide just in these last 4 months. So as you can see, this is a very, very intense situation, an intense subject, and I don't think people talk about it enough. And so therefore, I want to make sure that what I share with you today on the psychological part of it is truly understood, because sometimes we want to be strong and we want to move forward and we know that we have like an issue, but we think that we can control it. I know as a mom, clearly a single mom, I overwhelm myself with tasks and things that I do throughout the day because I want to tell myself I can handle it, I'll get to it and so forth. And some days are heavier than most. So I just want to make sure that when I go through this, I really emphasize that you listen to
what I have to say if you are feeling in any sort of way heaviness in your life. First, I want to be authentic. I want to be out in the open with you because that is my whole purpose of sharing my journey. It's not for pity. It's not for attention. It's not for really anyone to know my business. I've already been through this. I've lived through this and I've studied it and I've healed from it. So I've definitely lived through my life, to have to live through it again every single day, but I do it for you. And I do it because if the things that I had gone through and if the results were what I had attempted to do, I wouldn't be here right now. And I just hope that this voice of mine is reaching someone out there that sits in the shoes that I once did, in the darkest places that I once sat. And if I could be that light or that love for you, it's worth it. It's worth giving my business and being very authentic with you and open. So I had attempted to commit suicide 3 years ago. I was in a physically abusive relationship. I had come from a childhood of abuse. So therefore, my perception and knowing of love was chaos, commotion, abuse, basically earning love and sacrificing yourself for love. So, of course, as I grew older and got into involvement with men in obviously different relationships, I always felt I wanted to overly love because I knew what it felt like not to feel loved. But that also, unfortunately, with people that are also not mentally strong, that there's givers and there's takers. And unfortunately, the givers get taken advantage of because the takers don't have any limits. So I had gone through this abuse. And when it finally was time for me to leave or to escape or to get away, I felt that, one thing I could say about the judicial system is that I feel that it's set up for victims, and the people that go and get help when it comes to that point aren't actually victims anymore. They're survivors, and they're asking for the legal system to help them survive. So there's so many loopholes that the predators get away with obtaining their victims and prey, because obviously, like I said, it's set up for the victim aspect, not necessarily the survivor aspect. And the victim is still in it, where a survivor is out in searching all the help that they could get to stay out. So to make a long story short, I was doing just that. I was trying to get away from my survivor. He put trackers on my car and tracked me for 8 months. He kept harassing me, calling me, no caller ID blocked, revving his engine, driving past my house, leaving voicemails, revving his engine in my phone, doing things that like he couldn't necessarily get caught because I can't prove that it's, his car and my phone, revving the phone and calling me no caller ID blocked and fake numbers. And, unfortunately now they have all these apps that you can make all these fake numbers. And so I couldn't prove that it was physically him. And he also got a pay-as-you-go phone or a spoof phone, whatever you guys call it. So therefore, even the number wasn't tracked to his number. So he was even smart enough to do that, where he put the trackers and all that kind of stuff in this other phone number that I obviously was not aware of. So I couldn't say, oh yeah, that's the phone number XYZ or whatever. So it came to the fact that I was living to survive and I wasn't living to live. And I will say that one who is at the point of taking their life, it's not because they want to die. It's because they want to live. It's because they literally are living to survive and not living to live. Every single day that I woke up and had to go through the whole, I'm trying to escape this person, someone that I felt that I loved so much. So I'm grieving, as sad as it sounds and crazy as it sounds, because how could you, a lot of people think he beat you up. What do you mean you're grieving him? And you're going through this grieving process, and yet they're calling you and they're harassing you and they're doing things that are, playing games with your mind. There was a time that I went back to him and slept with him again and just thought that it was going to be okay after he had done the abuse. And, you that's where you become sick. That's where the mind, the psychache comes into play, because you are living on the dopamine part of when things were well. And because of the highs and the lows throughout the abuse and the love bombing, you now are ill. You actually are the same mental aspect as like a heroin addict, a drug addict, anyone that's in addiction. You actually become addicted to that high and that low. So that's what you are craving, to almost feel normal, even though it's not normal. But your body's used to being in survival mode and living to survive, not living to live. So you crave that abuse and that toxicity and that chaos, because that's what your body knows how to function. You see, our bodies, especially the brain, it's like a memory card. So what we tell our memory card, that's what they program for us to understand is love and, affection and whatever. So as I said, from childhood, being in that abusive relationship, I programmed my mind to have love and understand love as chaos, commotion, being treated less than, and so forth. So when I am out of that situation, as now fast forward, being in an abusive adult relationship, my brain is saying, what are you doing? That's normal. But my heart obviously knows, and the truth of it is that it's not normal. So you have to go through consistency to break that pattern, to break that habit. Just like someone that is overweight and has to break their food pattern of eating, it's the same thing. It's hard. They feel sick. They want the food. Anyone that's broke a sugar habit, you have horrible headaches, things like that. So your body physically feels sick, and it wants to go back to what it knows and to feel better. You just want to feel better. So back to the whole suicide part, is I got to the point where I'm looking, through legal help. I'm not getting any help. I'm asking him to please leave me alone. I'm, going to the extent, spending thousands of dollars as a single mom that I don't have, basically to protect myself. And it was like I was running from the devil. I was literally trying to escape and get away. And it was like I was screaming so loud, but nobody could hear me. And so that's where I began to crave peace, and living in that survival mode. The peace overwhelmed, the craving of peace overwhelmed my day-to-day blessings in life and things that normal individuals would say, what do you mean? You're grateful. You have children. Isn't that enough to live for? That's what a normal, healthy mind would think and would say. But the reality is that I was living to survive, and I wanted to get away. And what do we say when people pass? We say, rest in peace, right? So of course, resting in peace was death. Now, I want to go back to the brain. This is where I want you to really pay attention and understand. I lost family to suicide, and I remember my grandmother was very, I'm obviously upset, but to me, I felt like she had insensitive reaction to it. Everyone's grieving, and she was like, this is what she wants. This is what it is. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, that's your daughter. It's really insensitive to say that. And thinking back, that's because my grandma is healthy. It was a logical mindset of her. And she was upset that, she raised this daughter, and the daughter decided to do what she did. But I want you to understand something. When the brain gets to the point of seeking death over life, it is in a hyperactive mode. And the brain is an organ just like your skin, just like your heart, just like your kidneys. So if you are out there and you are blaming yourself or holding a grudge or holding some sort of feeling that you feel that whoever took their life, that they did it in a selfish manner, I want you to understand that that's like blaming somebody or taking blame for someone that had a heart attack. When it gets to the point of suicide, it is literally a point of organ failure. And that is something that you can't control. You can't go in someone's heart and after they had a massive heart attack and change it, right? Or even if they go through heart failure, you can't change that. And that's the same thing when it gets to the suicide part, the psychache part. It's something that it's an organ that's failed. So I think that understanding that may give you a little bit of sensitivity and understanding to that point when someone gets to that point. And going back to the brain, there is the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala that are in the brain. The amygdala is the first responder. That is basically the one that reacts to situations right away. Have you ever been in like a relationship and you get in an argument and right away you like fly off the handle? You didn't do that. You're screaming, yelling, whatever. It's getting toxic and so forth. Or even your kids. I told you to put your shoes away. Blah blah blah. Your initial reaction to that situation is what your amygdala does. Now, the prefrontal cortex is the second responder. So then you ever have that chance or that time where you cool down and then after thought and after, a couple hours or a day or so or whatever, you're like, man, I should have said this. I shouldn't have went off the handle so much. Or even you start thinking, oh my God, I should have said this instead. This would have been a better idea. Those thoughts are your prefrontal cortex. So those are what come after the fact. So when you are in a stressful, toxic, abusive, chaotic life, every single day your body is releasing cortisol. And cortisol is a chemical that is in our brain that helps us function when we are in stressful and heightened or situations that our brain has to have a protection response to protect us. Now, one who has or lives a toxic life, they constantly have high levels of cortisol being released because they're constantly in that fight mode. They're in that protective mode, survival mode, whatever word you want to use. And in time, cortisol inflames us. This is why most individuals, actually, I would say 99% of individuals who are abuse survivors, all of us have an autoimmune deficiency or disorder or some sort of lupus, Crohn's disease, IBS. I mean, obviously I could go on and on and on, but in our blood, we have inflamed red blood cell counts and inflamed basically organs because of that constant cortisol that we've had throughout our lifestyle. And when one is at the highest state of that stress, cortisol is being released so much that it causes the amygdala to go into hyperactive mode and it's like stuck in this constant fight and flight. So it doesn't turn off. Where individuals that have day-to-day stress and it's not chronic stress, theirs eventually turns off. They take a rest, they go to bed, whatever it is. And then the next day they start and they find their peace again. And then, obviously the cortisol only happens when they're in those protective situations or, stressful situations, a school test or a work, environment or something that you need to prep for, things like that, that maybe cause our blood to rise, our blood pressure to rise, but they eventually go off because obviously that situation or event take place and you move on. So having this amygdala go into that hyperactive mode, it doesn't turn off. So now that inflammation is getting bigger. And where is it at? It's in your brain. So clearly your organs are starting to cause and have inflammation around them. It's basically gets to a point where the amygdala gets so inflamed, it now causes the prefrontal cortex to actually respond in very slow motion. And what the prefrontal cortex is that's your logical thinking. Like I said, that's when you have a couple minutes to think and then you're like, oh, I should have done this or said this or whatever. So your prefrontal cortex clocks in basically after the fact. And then with it being slow, you become almost brain fogged. And like I said, you can't think rational or logical. And so your brain is now prioritizing survival over logic. So it's stuck in this like phase of like a broken record that it's not going to happen. You're not going to do it. You struggle. And that's all your brain starts to actually know and comprehend. It doesn't make decisions anymore or control impulses or regulation to everyday life. And this is why if you ever talk to a survivor of abuse, they will think back, and after they go through, therapy and so forth, and they heal, they'll all say, God, it was like a fog. It was like I was under a spell. And I remember saying that myself. I kept going, God, like thinking back, like in the things, they'll even be, I'm 3 years post my, trauma. And there's days where I even sit there and think, oh my God, I can't believe how embarrassing that I like let him talk to me like that. Or, how embarrassing that I thought that he was actually a good person. And here he was setting me up for this, that, and the other. And, that I loved someone so much that did all those disgusting, disturbing things to me. And it's because my brain was stuck in survival mode and I wasn't clearly thinking anymore in a logical manner. And I was thinking under the spell, that's the only way I can possibly put it. And I even remember the very first domestic battery that I had him arrested for. I remember he had choked me. He had put his arms around me and put his hands around my neck and pushed me backwards off of his bed. And I ended up having this huge bruise on my arm because he had hardwood floors. And so when I landed backwards, my arm is what braced my fall. And I remember, in my heightened situation, obviously telling the police, and in the police report, it says how he had choked me, pushed me backwards off the bed. And here it was days later. And now I'm sitting here thinking, I love him. It was an accident. I'm making excuses because now my survival mind is back in process. And I remember like denying that he choked me. Like I remember trying to like make excuses. Like I was like, well, I don't think he really meant to like choke me. Like I think he just pushed me back and it happened to be around by my throat. And I remember even his like ex-wife being like, you said he choked you. Like, what are you talking about? Like her like questioning me, like, what the heck? Like, no, he choked you. Like, don't change that truth. Like it's in the police report, And it's again, like I said, you're just like under the spell. So it keeps you in that danger. Then on top of it, with having that cortisol, that adrenaline, because obviously if you're in these stressful situations, and it doesn't have to be, like I said, abuse. It could be just life in general. You're feeling the heat of financial stress. You're feeling the heat from a loved one, or maybe your partner, or maybe you're feeling like you're not good enough, or that there's issues with you because you can't provide, and you're thinking that what you provide is what your worth is, and it's not. But maybe you're stuck in this mode. And so being in that mode, then because the mind is the steering wheel and tells the body how to react, your mind is now not letting you sleep. Your mind is now not letting you eat. You may have constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux. You might be having all these situations going through because obviously you also have the blood inflammation. And now you have your mind saying, hey, something's not right. We're in danger. Don't eat, don't sleep, don't function. And so now your body's slowing down in all organs, not just your mind. And I was in the hospital the year of my trauma. I was in the hospital 22 times for severe malnutrition and severe dehydration because I could barely eat anything without having diarrhea or throwing up. And it was because my nerves, I was so scared that he was going to jump out of a bush or, get me when I'm at the grocery store, somewhere where I can't protect myself. And so having that enlightenment. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. And anyone that knows when people get hangry, right? So if you're one that gets hangry, and then on top of it, add no sleep, I know many people that are like, hold on a minute, I need to think I didn't have my coffee, or hold on a minute, I need to think, I couldn't sleep last night. Imagine adding that now to the stressful life that you live. Again, you are just stuck in this thought process that you're doomed. You literally are feeling doomed. And then when you do reach out to help or for help, you feel like that burden now is on someone else, and your mind starts to not even realize the blessings of having children, owning a business, being rich, whatever it is, insert whatever blank blessing that you can say about that individual. That was the reason that they kept going to get to even where they are right now. And now it's at a point of organ failure is basically what it is. And so, it's a sincere mind collapse is really what it is. And so I want you to understand that if you are grieving from an individual who chose this for their life, please understand that it was an organ failure. It wasn't that they really didn't value you, didn't love you. It was your fault. And a lot of times you don't see, this is why it's such a silent killer, because you don't see people say, well, I didn't see them depressed. I didn't see them sad or mad, or, they were so happy. They were like functioning. And that's because at that time you are their loved one. So of course they're happy. Like they were in that dopamine rush of feeling loved for a change and not having that stress and so forth. And so it wasn't until they faced reality again. Like, you ever go on vacation, and when you're on vacation, it's like, nah, we could do anything. Let's just, let's splurge. Let's get out here. Let's drink this. Let's do that. That's the same thing that their loved ones are when they are around them going in this survival mode. It's like they're on this vacation. And then when you get back to reality, you're like, oh, let's do work again. Let's do life again. So that's why most loved ones don't see anything wrong, because there isn't anything wrong. They're on vacation. They're on their mode of, that's how their life is functioning at that point in time. So there really aren't any signs. Just like there aren't any signs when someone has a massive heart attack. My grandfather had a massive heart attack. He went bowling. He was in a big bowling league. He sat down to tie his shoes and literally slumped over, and that was that. My grandpa didn't show signs of heart failure or, not loving life or whatever. It was the same thing. So you cannot go through life and you cannot think that it was something you did or couldn't have done or should have done, or it's your fault or anything like that if you are that person, because you can't control organ failure. You can't control something that they didn't even know. It was literally the day before, even for myself, the day before I was functioning, I was going, and then the next day I couldn't do it anymore. My brain was stuck on that survival mode to just end it all and be at peace, because I couldn't take it. I just couldn't take it. And so if you are one of a loved one, the grieving process for any loss is hard, because the other form of grief is love. And if you didn't love them as much as you did, you wouldn't be grieving them as much as you do. And unfortunately, our bodies aren't designed to grieve. They're designed to build and love and, fulfill and, find worth, find value, enjoy the experience. And so grief for everybody really sits differently. But do know, as a trauma survivor, you grieve that as well. And one of the hardest things was grieving someone that was still alive. So here, they say out of sight, out of mind, and, it's easier to grieve someone that isn't showing their face and so forth. And so when you get to a point of having to grieve someone that still shows their face around, or that you have to face in court cases every month that did damaging things to you, it takes a different mindset and, a toll on your mind. And sometimes you just crave peace. So I hope that sharing this information with you today, maybe you aren't one that grieves someone. Maybe you are the one in that situation of questioning your life because you don't feel that your worth or value is meant to go on. Or maybe your mind is in that struggle right now and you think that you can handle it. You think that you can hold it. You think that you could go one more day. You want to be your independent self, your strong self. But it will creep on you. Negativity, trauma, all of that, it will show up in many different forms. And one day you won't be able to take it anymore. So I pray that this reaches, my voice is the voice that needs to be heard to someone who is questioning their life. If you feel at all in that point in your life and think that you can handle it or control it, please get medical help. You could call 988 from your phone, or you can use the suicide hotline, or seek someone that you know will be adamant to assure that your mental health improves and you get the help that you need before it's too late. And if I could be the voice that screams louder than the voices that are in your head every day telling you you can't and you won't and you're not enough and whatever, I hope that I could be that voice that tells you that you are so incredibly loved. And it isn't you. It's a malfunction. It's a organ situation that you have to address before it gets worse. Just like someone that has a blood clot and they have to make sure they take care of that before it gets to their heart. It's the same thing. You're not broken. You're building, you're becoming, you're actually observing, and getting help isn't weakness, it's actually strength. It's knowing that your health is number one and you can't be the someone that you are unless you're healthy. And if I could be the light that shines in the crack of the darkness that you sit, I hope that I'm the light that could open your eyes to how wonderful you are and how beautiful you are and how amazing you are. And maybe you need someone to sit with you in that darkness. I'm here. You can reach out to me. It doesn't have to be anything that I tell anyone, or, like I said, it could be between us. If you need someone to hold your hand while you make that call to get help, I will do it with you. And if I could be the heart that embraces you, to squeeze you so incredibly tight, to squeeze the doubt out of you, I will. I hope that I can be that person for you. And I hope that the love that I am giving in this message is the love that hits so deep within you, that allows your heart to stop beating so fast in that survival mode and gives you the rest for you to face reality, to see how amazing you are, how loved you are, and how valued you are. We are all living this fast-paced life on the go, and we forget that we have to stop and smell the roses sometimes. Tell people how much we love them. Tell people how much we appreciate them. Show that to them. And we forget that because the days are going by so fast and we get so caught up in our everyday life that the next thing you know, we're going to bed and repeating it again. But sometimes we need to just take that extra step and make sure that we tell the ones that we love how amazing they are, how important they are, and how much we love them. Don't ever be afraid to tell someone how much you care about them, because people don't remember the things that you do for them or the things that you buy them or the one in a lifetime, flowers you may get them or whatever. They remember how you made them feel. And throughout all of my suffering and struggle and trauma, I honestly can tell you less than one hand those who actually reached out and went out of their way to make sure that I got out of that darkness. Those people sat with me on the days that I didn't think that I could value myself to even sit up. And those people made sure that I kept going, to know that I was valued and loved so incredibly much that I needed to keep going. And I needed to be out of that spell to realize that life is not a human being seeking a soul of love. You are already a soul of love, and you are in a body just living a life of experience. Your soul is already loved unconditionally by the highest love there could ever be, but you need to see inside of yourself to know that. It's not external. The external is what gets your mind in the state that it is. And if I could be that soul for you, the soul that overpowers your body for a day instead of the soul that sits inside of it, to let you know in a whisper and in a gentle place of peace, to let you know that you're safe and you're going to be okay. Please know how much and how amazing you are, to know that you don't need to go any other days in stress. And it's just your amygdala, it's your prefrontal cortex that is out of balance. And it is in need of medical attention to rebalance itself. It isn't something that you can do. It is something that needs to be done medically because it's a chemical thing that is inside of your brain. And it's telling your body, your entire rest of your body, how to function. And don't be like me and allow it to think that you have control over it and allow it to start affecting your other organs and being in the hospital for organ failure because of malnutrition and dehydration. I can't replace your pain, and I can't change your past. Your past is your story, and it's there for a reason, because it's having you awaken and learn the lessons of what you thought was reality or what you thought was truth, but it isn't. For instance, me knowing love and understanding love as a sacrifice and something I needed to earn, where had I not gone through that abusive relationship, I wouldn't know that actually love is unconditional. It's not based on the conditions of who I am or what I do for others. And that it isn't something earned. It's something that you receive. Love is a gift, and gifts you receive. So I can't, again, like I said, replace your pain or change that past, but I hope that I can save you for the future that lies ahead of you, to remind you with an open heart, an open arms, open ear, anything to listen, to know without judgment that you are a masterpiece, a piece of the master. And it's with the pieces, the broken pieces of us, that we make that masterpiece. And the only way that we can do that, as Carl Jung once said, it is through great suffrage that we discover the greatest love. And that is because we all have this ego, which is what we have learned over life, our beliefs, our experiences, and so forth. And we allow those experiences and those pasts to define us, when really they're not there to define us. They're there to discover us. And those situations that we have been through in our lives are there to show us the worth and value and the opposite of what we thought we were or believed we were, or what we experienced that we went, that we have gone through. Like I said, the brain is set up to protect you. It automatically goes into protection mode, and it doesn't know what's good and bad. It only knows what you programmed it to be. So if you've been in abuse your entire life and think that that is love, that's what your brain thinks is love. And anyone with a logical, healthy mind will say that is not love. And this is why you need to get those balances back in check, just like an engine. When it starts to make noise, it starts to knock, it starts to shake, it starts to rattle because it needs oil or whatever it is. It's time to check your engine light. And that's basically what it is. I hope that you see the beauty within yourself. And I hope that this reaches who it's meant to. And for you to understand that the brain, the psychache, is at a point that it is intensive psychological pain, and it's out of the window to fix on your own or to control on your own. And like I said, it's not weakness, it's strength. And if you're in this situation, please get the help, because we need you.